So we're here for Talking Dirt, and I have Kylie Woodham with me from, what is the name? Magnus? Is it
Magnus Farm.
Magnus Farm? I didn't know if it was a family farm or anyway. And you write on Substack, Soil Sister, and we're going to talk today a little bit about what our journey as farming moms has been like. What did that what did that look like for you, Kylie? Like, what was it like when your kids were younger? I know they're grown now, and more independent, but when they were younger, how did that look for you? And I know you transitioned into farming along the way. So, like, what led you into farming, and how did motherhood shape all of that?
Yeah, well, my entry into farming began in Central West Australia, Central West New South Wales. I was born onto a farm. My mum and dad both came from farming families, and our family farm was a mixed farm. My dad passed away when I was 12 in 1984. So that meant that our farm was sold. I was 12 years old. So I always look back on that time and think I was only a child and I didn't really have any understanding of the realities of farming. So to me, it was all about spending time with my dad and riding horses and mustering and plowing and growing food and eating really beautiful homegrown lamb and beef and vegetables. So I really had a very romantic view of farming. Um, there was also drought. I went droving with my dad and didn't really see anything wrong with that either. Just the enjoyment of being on your pony and being on the road with the cattle. And so when I had my own children, um, I always wanted to be able to show them that side of farming. I wanted them to be able to see where their food came from and how important it was to grow things with respect and to eat things with respect. How to, that something had a life if you're eating meat, and to honor that life and make sure that you can do the best you can for every part of that animal. So, fast forward to 2004, my husband Billy and I bought a small block of land in Feathered in County Tipperary in Ireland. And obviously, I'm not Irish, but Billy is. And that's where Magnus Farm eventually came about, because we didn't live on that farm. We kept it and tried to pay off as much as we could with off farm jobs. And then eventually in 2016, we moved back to Ireland. And I said to Billy, I just want to stay on the farm. I want to be at home for the kids, for pickups and drop offs. And I want my kids to be able to experience what I was able to experience. So I'm not going to say I went into farming as a 10-year-old child, but I kind of went into farming as a 10-year-old child.
And how old were your kids at that point, Kylie?
Okay. So Finn would have been 8, 9, 10, 11. Imogen was 11. Tig would have been 12, and Matilda would have been 14. So they
Mhm.
weren't babies, but also, if I was going to stay at home, our background was in horses, and thoroughbred horses are dangerous and fast. And
Mhm.
I just didn't think it was something that I'd be able to do with the kids at that age, because I just thought, um, you know, it just stuff doesn't go to plan with horses, and you need to have your wits about you, and they're very dangerous if you get on the
Yeah.
wrong side of a thoroughbred. So I decided that we would start with hens. We started with 10 hens. We started selling their eggs on the side of the road. We literally used to keep the proceeds in a biscuit jar or cookie jar under our sink. And, um, and, at after a couple of months, we had €150, which is about $150. And I said to Finn, who was the youngest, what should we do? Should we go out for lunch or have a meal? And he said, oh, let's buy more chickens. So that was the end of that. Off we went. I'd say in the back of his mind, he didn't think that we'd end up with 1,000 chickens, 1,000 hens, but that's what we did in the end. So getting back to being a mum, there's always so many positives and so many negatives
Hmm.
that it
For sure.
depends on which side of the coin you're looking at. So, in terms of spending time with my children and getting to be able to drive them to places and always be there if someone was sick or had to be picked up early from school, I mean, those are beautiful benefits. And getting them involved on the farm and letting them understand food production and how
Mhm.
those challenges are quite big, not just environmental and time management, but there's a lot of work that goes into it, which I know you know all about.
Mhm.
But I feel like that was an incredibly important part of their life too. I mean, there were times in COVID where the kids were literally working full time for me on the farm. And they, like there are two of them in the house right now. And if they walked into the kitchen and you said, what was that like? They'd probably go, oh my gosh, it was terrible and mum was a terrible boss. But I think ultimately they will say it was a great experience. They all kept little hourly books and they put in their wage slip each week and I paid them their hourly rate. And I mean, yeah, so there's always pluses and minuses, isn't there? It just depends on how
Sure.
how you look
Yeah.
at it.
Yeah. I think Big Tech is not quite on the other side of it yet. Like he still has a lot of the negative about farming. Particularly the haying was grueling for him. He doesn't do so well in the heat. His father is Scottish, like comes from Scottish descent, and so like they just don't do so. And the very fair skinned. Um,
Mhm.
so that and it has always been just a very a skeleton crew for us. It's been he and my sister when it comes to the haying in particular. So three of us trying to put 400 bales up in the barn in the heat of summer, and it's intense.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and
Can relate. Can relate.
so he still has something, and then like the animals, he's not. I wouldn't say he's not an animal person, but he's not into all of the responsibility, all of the chores and whatnot. So I'm hoping, maybe in 10 years when he's further away from it, it will be more of a fun, like, that's character building stuff, right? I'm not going to apologize for him having to do those things or having to learn those skills or, to suffer through. We need to suffer through sometimes. It's not all,
Mm.
no matter what we're doing, right? It's not all roses.
Mm. Yeah,
But
definitely. And especially with farming, you know, a lot of people look at it and think that's such a beautiful lifestyle and look at them out there in the fresh air and um but that's fresh air for like 15, 16 hours a day as well as bookkeeping, marketing, um being a mom, cooking, looking
mhm,
after the house, laundry.
yeah,
So it
doing all of
is
that.
It is beautiful. It's a great lifestyle for them. And I think it's a very realistic life for them because they do see the struggles. They see, the stress. I don't know what it's like when you're making hay where you are, but in Ireland, you might get 3 days of sunshine in the whole summer. So when you start making hay, you're literally lying in bed at night saying, "Is that rain? Can I hear rain? What about my hay? I
Yeah,
got to turn it tomorrow. Can we bale it?" You're kind of looking at the at the person who's coming to bale it and saying, "Can you do us first? Because you're small, so you got to get a contractor." I mean, it's
yeah,
stressful, and it's
it is.
like that could be 40% of your income gone in a couple of days because it suddenly starts raining. So
Mhm.
and then you work so hard bringing in the hay and turning it and loading it into a shed, then to worry. I mean, I'd lie awake thinking, is our hay barn going to catch on fire because we packed
I
it
just
too
because
we
you
packed
hear
it too soon
stories
or it's
about
not.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And of course when you do pack it too early and everyone says, "Oh, you packed it too early," like you should have left it another couple of days and then
yeah.
it's hot, hard work carrying those bales because the better hay you make, the heavier they are. And then, like at the end of it, when you think how much time and stress you put into them and you think, I'm probably working for 50 cents an hour because
Yeah, crazy. Yeah.
but anyway, I mean, again, that's kind of life and the times, like my kids, watching my kids learning to drive driving the van to pick up the hay around the paddocks, and yeah, I'm sure they have a lot of stories too about driving around the paddocks without me knowing. So yeah, there's some good memories there as well.
Yeah. Yeah, they can dig a little deeper. I'm sure they've got some good ones.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
So, let's see. So, when you look back on that journey, what parts would you say brought you joy?
Hmm. Well, the ones that really stand out in my mind are serving a meal at our kitchen table and knowing that every single thing on that table had come from our farm,
I
and
love
that
that.
everyone sitting at the table had had a part in bringing that to the table. And the first time that happened, I thought, like, I really have achieved something here. And this is a great achievement to have
Mhm.
done this and to know the nutrition and the welfare and the soil, everything. It was just such a beautiful moment. But then, you know, as time wore on, that loses its novelty. And then you have people, because it's just like, yes, of course, we're having eggs again for dinner because we have like 1,000 eggs. But I think it's when other people sit at your table and they really notice the difference, especially for something, say, like the one thing that I notice is so incredibly different is pork products that have been grown on pasture. I mean, they're nothing like what you can buy in the
Mm.
supermarket. And so many people would sit down to a meal and just say, like, what even is this? That they couldn't even say, is this pork or is this beef or is it lamb? They just didn't even, they'd never
Yeah.
tasted anything like that.
Well,
So,
the
I mean,
taste is completely different, right?
everything, the color, the texture, the flavor, everything
Mm.
about it, just was so different. And the other thing that really stood out to me, which was when I started as a egg farmer, I didn't realize that hens were like retired after a year. And I didn't really know what retiring them meant. It's not like a racehorse where you put them out in the
Right.
paddock and, they get shipped off fairly, it's not a nice situation. They get shipped off in cages to another country where they get made into pet food. And I thought, how could we respect them so badly to give them that end after everything they've done for us? And especially the life that they've led on our farm, in that they've been
Yeah.
outside every single day that they've been with us and they've been scratching and, like they have incredible nutrition.
Yes.
So so I just said, "Well, we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna send them away. We're gonna try and keep them for another year and just see what our production levels look like. Can we increase our prices so that it doesn't matter that they're not laying as much? We can hang on to them for that little bit longer," which we did, and some of them we kept for 3 or 4 years because they were the beautiful Aracanas or Easter
Yeah.
egg, laying the blue and the green eggs. So, so I developed a recipe for a chicken bone broth, and we started making chicken bone broth from the spent hens, which we processed on the farm ourselves. So,
Wow.
I could stand behind every hen and say, "Well, I was there. I know that I treated her better and I looked after
Yeah.
her." So we developed this chicken bone broth, and I mean, I'm not a chef or a cook. I know what beautiful food tastes like, but the flavor from that broth was so chickeny. I mean, it was like something fake, like chicken crisps or potato crisps. I mean, it just
Um,
tasted unbelievable. And so we entered it in a competition in Ireland called the Irish Food Awards, Blas na Éireann. And so we entered it in the awards, and I went with my eldest son, Tig, because it got to the finals. So we went down, and there's a couple of panels before the awards, and a couple of the judges were on the panels and they were talking about this particular product. And the guy who was leading the panel said, we're sitting around this table and everyone was like, oh my gosh, like, where is this thing from and who made it? And, like, where do we get it? And I looked at my son and I said, "Oh my gosh, imagine if they were talking about your product. Could you imagine in front of all these people?" Of course,
Oh,
the next day we were sitting in the auditorium and there is an award called the Chef's Choice Award. And it's for an award they give specially from the judges, as in like this one was like out of the park. And when they called out Magnus Farm chicken bone broth, I mean, we nearly fell off our seat. We
oh
were
my God.
just so excited that like a
That's
tiny little
amazing.
producer like us could produce something like that. And yeah, it was just so beautiful to have my son Tig sitting next to me for that
Mm.
moment. The realization of everything that we were going through was not just for us, but for other people, that we were offering this product. But then the award, it was like, whoa, what's going on? It
My
was
boy.
just
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that was a very important moment for us as farmers, but as me as a mum, to have your 15-year-old son sitting next to you, probably totally embarrassed by his mum, like, ah!
That's what moms are for.
That's what mums are for, right? Embarrassing you.
Yeah. Just a little bit
A little
sometimes.
bit, a little bit. Yeah, not all the time, but just enough.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. That's a fantastic story. I really love that. Yeah.
How about
And
you, Sam? What about you? When's been your most proud
uh,
moment as a
good
mum and a farmer?
question. I don't know. Watching Braytech mature into a grown adult has been really profound. Like the last couple years, he's just grown as a man,
Mm,
and as an individual. He wanted to get an off-farm job. He's honest about where he's at in his life right now as a young person. And he brings with him those experiences from and he's done it with me from the beginning, this poor kid, because he and his older brother is autistic. William is 4 years older than Braytech and lives with his dad, and they really have an awful tense relationship, and it's got to the point where they can't even be in the same space. Long story. So that's why he spent so much time with me. And then it got to the point where we said, they need to be separated. So William lived with his dad. Braytech moved in with me permanently. And just so he's been with me through like the beak. I've got pictures of this kid carrying around my smoker. He went to farmer's market with me and he made his own dog cookies to sell at farmer's market. He would
love
have his
it.
own
Yeah.
little table set right up next to my booth, and he would be selling his dog cookies and pink lemonade to
I
customers, and
love
they
it.
loved. He was 9 at the time, and so they
Yeah.
ate it up. They're like, "Oh, here's this young entrepreneur," and so he was making his own money, and he's always had this like drive to. I think he gets it from my ex-husband's mom. So my former mother-in-law, Irish, and so she's got like a money thing and was like very savvy. And I think that's where Braytech's money thing comes from. I don't have like money is a useful tool, but I'm not like, I mean, obviously, look at the life I'm living. Um, so just seeing him come full circle,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
start to step up and like take care of mom. Like last year, we were doing the hay, and I had had heat stroke a couple years back, and
Whoa.
you don't realize how much that permanently alters your body. Like it
Mm,
seriously fries your
mm.
whatever.
Yeah, it's not
um,
good.
right. And so it's really affected my ability to farm, in the heat. And so last year we were doing the hay and I was like, I'm really stubborn about doing a project and I'll bull through. But then I was like swaying on my feet and dizzy and like gonna be sick.
Yeah,
And
not
so he's
not
like, "You
great.
just stand over there, mom, in the shade, and you would be dead out here if I wasn't here looking after you and help." Yeah. So just seeing
That's
him
great.
grow up is really reward. I don't know.
Mm.
And maybe we all
No.
feel that way about our kids, but
No, and I think there's something really special about the farmers markets. because that's where we started after we had enough eggs to sell. We went to our first farmers markets with 6 dozen eggs. And I remember thinking, what are we going to do with all these eggs when nobody buys them when we come home with 6 dozen eggs? But we went and we sold them, and then we got more hens and we were selling more and more eggs. And um, the kids used to come along to the markets with me, like begrudgingly, because we'd have to leave at like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
which meant you have everything packed and ready to go the night before, which might
Mhm.
mean that you'd stayed up till like 2 o'clock packing eggs and
Oh,
making sure, before we had our systems in place and we were just
yeah.
winging it. And the kids would come along and they would stand beside me the whole time. And to listen to them talk to customers about our product with the same sort of pride and joy that I had was just so fabulous, because it was just amazing listening to them give the spiel on the eggs and the spiel on the, but saying it because they knew that's what happened. Like,
Mhm.
yes, we do move the hens every day, and yes, they're fresh. They were probably laid yesterday, and yeah, it's just a really beautiful experience standing next to
Mhm.
them. And when I look back at those photos and, we're like rugged up, everyone's freezing, they've got their
There's some
beanies on,
tough
and
days at market. Yeah.
they are tough days. And you really have to, yeah, you really, oh, someone's sending love hearts. That's so sweet. That's, yeah, it's tough days, but it's also beautiful, because I think when we started, and our eggs were more expensive, a lot more expensive than they were in the supermarket. And older country people are the hardest critics of all, because they've tasted good food, right? Like they grew
Mm.
up with it. So they
Yep.
you can't fool them with any sort of marketing strategy. So they used to come over and they'd say, "Oh, like the eggs are a bit expensive." And I'd say, "Sure, like they are, because we farm differently and we have to make our eggs that expensive, otherwise it's not worth our while farming." So then they'd, yeah, okay, they'd go off and they'd buy the eggs. The next week they would be back and they'd say, "Okay, you know what? Your eggs were something like I used to eat as a child."
Mhm.
So, and hearing the kids replicate that back to somebody and, like, wait till you taste them, wait till you taste these eggs, because,
Cute.
this, yeah, it was beautiful. It's really
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, you can see it sinking in, and you're like, "Oh, they are listening."
They are listening, but they also hold those values that
Mhm.
probably made you want to farm in the first place. And I think that's what's really so special about it. It's not a marketing spin or a, like, let's just sell them at twice the price. And
Mhm.
like, it's a genuine, and they know how hard it was to get those eggs there. They picked the eggs, they fed the hens, they moved the houses. So yeah, there's incredible joy about um, farming with your children. They'll probably write books in the future. Like, our mother was like a child slavery person who beat us into submission. I mean, I never did that, obviously, but um, you know,
I did with because Braytek was in public school for a while, and then when COVID hit, like, he was having a lot of, issues acting out in school, like, he's really passionate about social injustice, so he would see one of
mm,
his friends being treated improperly, he would think, and he would make it known that that's not right, and so I would get called when I was still working at Johnny's Selected Seeds, I would get calls at work sometimes that he needed to be picked up, um, and it just kept escalating, and so when COVID hit, I was like, "Well, let's go back to homeschool." I had homeschooled the kids when they were younger, and then he had wanted to go to school, and especially
mm,
with the tension between the boys, I was like, "Okay, yes, go to school, get your social interaction." And
mhm.
so then COVID hit, and I was like, "Well, let's go back to homeschooling because this online schooling is silly. That wasn't working well, and I could do it better." And so I brought him back home, and we turned it into a trade school, and the farming became part of his education. I was bound and determined that he was gonna have a work ethic. Like, I just can't stand seeing the young people sucked into their phones. Not that he doesn't have a phone, and he has his own issues with the internet and whatnot, but I wanted him to at least know how to work. And I think he's taken that with him now that he's working at this restaurant washing dishes. So there's something there.
Yeah, it gets carried through, of course, a work ethic. Farming people have a different work ethic completely to most people, I think, just
Yeah.
because there's no alternative. Like, you can't call in sick at 5 o'clock because you had a few too many glasses of wine the night before. You just got to, it doesn't matter. The animals are still waiting, and you just have to get up and get on. And,
For sure.
you'd nearly have to lose a limb before you didn't turn up to work. You know, they don't care if you're
Not
sick
dead in a
or,
ditch somewhere. Yeah.
yeah.
So what's it like now that your children are grown? I know that you have recently moved back to Australia with
Mhm.
several of your older children, and things have changed for you guys. Um, what does farming look like for you now? And what kind of adjustment has that been for you and your family?
Yeah, that's a very big question for me, especially. I've been back in Australia for 3 years, and I'd say for the first 12 months, I fought that identity crisis vehemently because I just saw myself as a farmer. I just wanted to be farming. I wanted to be surrounded by animals. I wanted to get up in the morning and have a bucket in my hand. So that took me, probably 12 months to actually not get over that. I mean, in the end, we had to move into town and I had to get rid of the animals that we had in Australia. So, I mean, that was very hard because it's kind of your identity. It's part of your
Mm.
fabric. It's part of your whole, if I wasn't a farmer, what was I? I wasn't
Mhm.
going to go back to corporate life, and um, I had, people to feed and look after. So what was I? And I found that very difficult. I just wasn't quite sure how did I fit into anything then. So I suppose, I mean, I'd always loved gardening and growing things on the farm, growing garlic to sell, growing potatoes in Ireland to sell. So I just really started concentrating on the soil and creating good soil and good compost, and then started no dig gardening, and then that becomes addictive because you just, well, just one more row won't hurt. And so I think I've kind of adjusted as opposed to transformed into anything else. I mean, in my heart, I still feel like a farmer. I still look at everybody's pastures and their cattle and, like, well, they could do with a bit more weight, or, they're a bit, um, I don't think you ever lose that. It's part of your fabric. It's part of your DNA once you're a farmer. But I think I probably feed that addiction through my gardening. So, now that is my farming. So, I get up every morning and I go out before I do any work and walk across the garden barefoot and check, has anything grown an extra millimeter since I saw it last night before I went to bed, and um, take a very keen interest in making good compost and saving seeds. And so I think it's something that you can kind of you can adapt to wherever you are instead of being heartbroken and missing the farm. You can adapt it into something that is suitable for the time.
Yeah.
Whether I return to Ireland and farm again, I'm not sure that I'd want to go back and do it to such extremes, as in, I wouldn't probably have that many enterprises on the go at the one time.
Yeah.
I'd try and balance things a little better than before, as in, I wouldn't try and farm 24/7, 365 days a year. Um, yeah, so I think it's just something you can put on ice for a few years. When I say put it on ice, maybe it's just like, I don't know. It's just something that you can say, well, I'm gonna finish this off in another couple of years. For now, I'm gonna do it how I can. So I'm also grateful because the kids are a bit older, and I don't know how that would have fitted in with them as 17, 18, 19, 20 year olds. That's a tricky part of
Mhm.
life to be their their boss, their mom,
Yeah.
that's a lot going on. So yeah, I'm kind of grateful, and again, I think it's how you look at it as opposed to being sad or resentful, or it is what it is. Yeah. I just noticed there's a question there, what was different between Ireland and Australia farming? And the first thing I would 100% have to say there is the climate, because in Ireland it rains a lot and it's cold. And where we are at the moment, I mean, it's a very, very brittle environment in Australia. The soils are shallow. The rain is literally, you get it when you get it. It's not,
Mhm.
um, it doesn't come in when it's supposed to come in. Whereas in Ireland, you always know it's going to rain. But, and holistic grazing and moving stock, you can do that um, because you've got rain. So the soil is always going to recover quickly.
Right.
Things happen very quickly. So if you start doing holistic grazing, and like 30 days later, suddenly there's new pasture species growing, like different seeds that have been sitting there dormant suddenly start growing. And I feel like in Australia that process is a lot harder to
That
manage
makes
and cope
sense.
with. Plus, in Australia, there's also with feral pigs, with feral deer, with kangaroos. So if you're giving paddocks a rest, you've also got to think about someone else that's not your own stock is going to come in and start eating all the grass that you've,
Oh,
you know,
wow, yeah. Yeah.
done such hard work to save for your stock. So yeah, that's tricky.
Mm, interesting.
Mm.
Yeah. Let's see. Hmm. So, when we had our get to know you conversation, we talked a little bit about how we've gotten a little more protective of our gardens. Um, Now that we've transitioned into these different phases of our journey, um, what does the garden represent for you now personally? And how does that affect those around you?
Yeah, I think it was funny the day you and I were talking, and I jokingly said people have got to earn the right to come to my garden. And I know that you laughed and agreed because sometimes when friends come to the house, and because I write about the garden or I post pictures of it, and they'll say, can I come and see the garden? I'm kind of like, yeah, I guess so, because I weigh it up and I think, will they appreciate it? Will they understand it? But of course, like if they're friends and they're coming to the house, then of course I will take them to the garden. So I'm protective of it because it's not just about the garden, right? It's so much more than that. I mean, like I mentioned before, every morning when I get up, that's the first thing I do. I go out to the kitchen, I flip the jug, get the water boiling, and then invariably I walk out into the garden without any shoes on. I walk across the lawn in my bare feet. It's like cold water therapy. And then I walk up and down the rows. I take the compost bin out and empty the compost bucket. And then just that tiny noticing of things, when
Mhm.
you have planted seeds and then you look down and you think, oh, there's something poked its head through the night. And that joy, that excitement. I mean, I don't know what happens to chilies overnight, but every morning I go out and there's like red chilies when yesterday they were green, and
Mhm.
I pick them and put them in my pockets, come back, a couple of hours later you'll find like a jacket with chilies in the pocket. Or but it's just it's such a haven for um just settling your mind and settling into the day and grounding yourself and just, connecting yourself back with what's real and what brings your, peace and serenity without getting too woo woo. I mean, it just does. However, I've woken up
Yeah.
when I come back in and pour the coffee, it's like I've forgotten anything that I was worrying about or thinking about, or um, it's just so much more than nutrition. The food is the bonus
Right?
because, yeah, like it's almost like the food is like second to the other benefits that the garden gives you. And I think too, when people do come over and they want to see the garden, and I'm not talking like my garden isn't perfect or beautiful in any,
Sure.
landscape way, but just bringing people into the garden and then snapping something off, and it might just be a lettuce leaf or a tomato from a vine, or what's growing, a bean, or it's just something really simple to snap it off and then hand it to somebody.
Mhm.
And then the reaction, which is never planned, it's not like they're, "Oh, what a beautiful flower." It's like, "Whoa, like, when did tomatoes taste like this?" Or,
Right.
"I've never tasted broccoli like that before." Or and it's really just it's just so beautiful, isn't it? To give someone that gift and to watch
It's
their
special, yeah.
reaction.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's almost something reverent about it that you've shown them, the other side, or you've opened a door for them or something that just makes it so, I don't know, it's like it's holy or something. It's just really such a gift. And to, sometimes when they look at the compost pile, it's like, ew, what is that? And I'll stick my hand in and say, take a look at this. And, you'll pull up like a handful of worms and,
Mhm.
they're either disgusted and run away, or they're, like, oh my gosh, like how could there be so much life in there teeming with life? So it's such a gift really to show that to people. And even some of the kids, friends, they'll come out and they'll be like, "Oh my god, mum wants to show you the garden." And then they'll come out and it's almost like they can't believe that you were performing this magic in the backyard. They're like, "I can't believe that you're growing all this food." It's almost like they've never heard of it before. I mean, and I
Right.
find that just incredible, that you're performing some sort of magic or witchcraft in your backyard.
It's just a garden.
It's just a garden. Yeah.
But it really is more than that. Like, for me, it's definitely, a sacred space, a place, like you
Mm.
said, for cleansing your mind and just, like, grounding yourself.
Mm.
Um, it's like an extension of your most personal self in a lot
Mm.
of ways. Like, we're
Mm.
putting these, like, values and ideas into practice in our gardens.
Mhm.
And for me, I have not had enough people come to admire my garden lately. I'm like, "Have you seen?" I'm gonna have to make more videos just to share it with people because it's looking so fantastic this year, and,
Yes.
you know?
I fully endorse that behavior, Sam. I think you should make a lot more videos of your garden, for sure.
Uh,
I mean,
oh my
it
goodness.
is it is a thing of beauty, and sometimes when you're around it all day, you don't, and yours is more of a place of work for you, right? Like, it's not just,
W it's a place of work, but at the same time, like, I don't feel like myself if I haven't been in the garden. You know what I mean? Like, it really is an
mm,
extension of my most personal self, and so if
mhm.
someone does come into the garden and they don't appreciate it properly, it's super disappointing. It's a big letdown. I'm like, you're, like, rejecting me. How can you do that, you know?
Basically, you're never coming to my house again. Please don't call me.
That's the line.
You will not be getting a Christmas card this year.
You're dead to me.
You're dead to me. I think sometimes too, if I've been away or I've been into a city or I've been in places where there are a lot of people And sometimes I will pull into the garage and get out of my car, leave my shopping, whatever is in the car, and just go to the garden. And just, it's like a decompression. And
Mm.
it's literally like, 5 minutes in the garden, I'm ready to tackle the world again. I can go and collect my groceries from the car. I can, seize the day again because there's just something so magical about it. Watching stuff grow. I mean, even watching the biodiversity in your garden, watching the things interacting with the other things, you know,
Yeah.
it's incredible. When you see the bees appear again in the spring for the first time and you think
Mhm.
nothing's going to pollinate, nothing's going to happen because we haven't got any bees. And then suddenly there they are. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's just so beautiful. Even
Yeah.
things, we have a white cabbage moth that comes to our garden to eat the brassicas. And I mean, you can't even hate them because they're just so, they're so pretty and they're
Yeah.
white and
And
flapping
they
around the
flit. We
place.
have them
And
here too. They flit over the top of the garden, and
yes.
this year I've been really fascinated. I have like a bountiful population of bluebirds.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
And just like with the fields, I have a lot of birds right now. Because I put in new birdhouses too, I've propagated my bluebird population. So I'm watching them
Wow.
like swirl above the garden, and they'll come down in, and they're picking off, insects from the garden back out to feed the babies. And so I can see like my garden's not just feeding me or a few CSA members; it's
Mm.
feeding this whole neighborhood. It's really beautiful.
Yes, that is gorgeous. That actually reminds me, we have had some kookaburras, and I don't know if you're
Oh, you
familiar with
shared
the
some
kookaburra.
pictures, yeah.
I mean, they are the most incredible birds. They're Australian and they have a really distinct cry, and it's kind of
Mhm,
like a laughter. They call it kookaburra laughs, but they are often in my garden, like there'll be, and they're not a bird that comes and, well, not that I've grown up with. Sometimes they can be very familiar with people, but even just seeing them in the garden, sitting on the fence, and
mhm.
it's just such a gift, it's so beautiful. And the magpies, we've got a beautiful Australian magpie, again with a gorgeous call, and they come and sit, on the garden. I'll come out and salute them. Good morning, magpies. And
Mhm.
um, those are obviously very welcome visitors. They are welcome in the garden. They respect the
Yes,
garden.
they do,
They're
and
probably
they're appreciative, and I don't know, and I feel an affinity, and I talk to them too. I'll say, "Good morning, how are you?" And they'll look at you, and you're looking back at them, and, I don't know, I love it. I love that
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I do too. I almost feel like the magpie is looking at me like, "What are you doing in our garden? Like, what are you doing here? We're having breakfast and you came along."
Uh, so, you're on the other side of your transition now. How are you feeling about all of that? Stepping away from the farm and
Oh,
putting
well,
it over.
I'm really lucky that I have managed to get some work writing a book about regenerative ag in Australia with a charity called Carbonate. And although I'm not actually farming myself, I feel as close to farming as I can be because I get to speak to a lot of people about regen ag and about
Mm,
their own journeys and what regen ag means to them from an Australian perspective. And I've also been lucky enough to speak at a few festivals around farming and talking about my journey with Magnus Farm. And also that I live on a 10,000-acre farm in Australia. So it's kind of like I get all the benefits of farming without the stress of farming, um, which I'm really grateful for. And yeah, I find it's just so it feels so rewarding to be on the other side of what we went through and what we did, and because farming is hard, right? Like
Mhm.
it's never ending, and it's a it's a privilege to have been able to farm, and I feel very grateful for that. I'm very grateful for where I am at the moment and kind of getting to the end of, Finn finishing school. That's a big milestone. So he's lucky last of 4 kids finishing school. And that's a big achievement, I feel like, to have done that. And to be able to enjoy that without the pressures of farming is something that I
Yeah.
really am grateful for. Um, and yeah, the opportunities to speak at different events and um, has just been such a gift because you get to meet all those people and really feel that empathy for them, what they're doing, what they've gone through. So we have a fellow in Australia called Matthew Evans, and he has written some beautiful books, one of which called Soil. If you get the opportunity to read it, it's just an incredible book. And Matthew had a TV series called The Gourmet Farmer, in which he left the city and went out to Tasmania, which is down the bottom of Australia, and started farming. And, like the rest of us, realized it's not all skipping through flower fields in pretty dresses. So he started a festival called Grounded, and he asked me to go and speak at the first event, which I
Hey.
did. And afterwards, or before I spoke, he said, it's meant to be uplifting and you're meant to inspire people, keep it light. And so I was telling my story and, regaling all the funny things that happened on the farm. And then uh, at the end, there's like a question time. And the first girl stood up and started talking and burst into tears.
Oh, no.
And then, she composed herself, asked a question. The second girl got up then and and burst into tears. And I was like, I could see Matthew in the background, and I was like, please don't. He told me to keep it light. Can everyone please stop crying? But it was, I think, because it touched the heart of so many people, and so many people were struggling with that pressure. They were both women, they were both mums, they were both, trying to make it work, trying to be a good mum, trying to do it all at once. And I think, when they hear their story being told, it really touches a chord for them. So I think to be able to also say to some of those people, like, you don't have to do it all. And, you're being a mum, and that's a big job in itself. So then to be farming and take all those responsibilities on your shoulders. Um, so this is kind of a long-winded way of saying I'm out the other side, but I feel very connected still with farming, with farmers. And I feel like my you know, next chapter is more around it's more around that, communicating with farmers and things. I just see that someone made a note there, Low Tox Life podcast. Is that the same Matthew Evans? I mean, maybe that could be him. He's from Tasmania. He's very into, there's also another guy in Australia called Pete Evans, which could be him. They're not related, but yeah, Matthew Evans. If you Google him, he's also written a couple of books called Meat, Milk and Soil. So yeah, he's got a great way of writing and a great way of, you know, investigating things without too much emotion. So, yeah.
Typical man.
Yeah.
Well, I love that you're on the other side and that you're branching out into this like educational outreach aspect and that you're able to bring all of this stuff that you've learned to help people in Australia move into regenerative agriculture because it sounds like that's going to be a really difficult transition in your region in particular. So I
Mm,
think that's really fantastic, Kylie. That's exciting.
mm. Thank you, Sam. Thank you. I wrote a book a couple of years ago called Soil Sister: Farming for Our Future, and it happened because I was lucky enough. to go to Spain for a month as part of a EU entrepreneur for females retreat. It was like a month away from your business
Wow.
to work on your business.
How do I get
And
pregnant for these retreats? If anybody's watching, send me a ticket.
yeah, I mean, it was a once in a lifetime opportunity because they paid for everything. They paid for your housing. You had to buy your own meals, but of course, I made friends with the local gardeners and used to go down to their gardens and pick all
Nice.
the. But when I went there, none of the other women were involved in agriculture or farming. So I went with my, you know, spiels. Goodbye, Patrick. I went to, I went to this. It was called the break, and I went to the break thinking, well, I'm going to explain soil chemistry and I'm going to explain how important it is to, look after your soils. But when I got there, 8 out of the 10 women that I was living with were vegan or vegetarian, and they had no concept of regenerative farming. But I just completely had to change my mindset around what I thought about other people and preconceptions of how privileged I had been to grow up on a farm and understand where my food had come from and the value of what good food was like. And then I had to say to myself, well, these women are making choices about their food. At least they're making choices about their food and they're thinking about where their food has come from. And obviously, everyone has their own choice. Oh, thanks, Sandra. That's so nice. I just, it just completely blew me out of the water. And one of the girls said to me, she'd been working with a lot of homeless people, and she said, "What would you say about regenerative farming to a man who is living in his car and feeding his kids from the back seat of his car?" And it just threw me backwards, because I haven't lived a life of luxury, but I mean, I'm incredibly privileged. I'm white. I grew up on a farm in Australia. I mean, I'm so lucky. So it just totally reframed my thinking. And I thought, I want to get this message out to as many people as I can respectfully, not
Mhm.
from a privileged viewpoint. So I wrote a children's book called Soil Sister. And it's really about this worm telling this story about the soil and how important it is and how we can look after the land. And yeah, so I feel very, very lucky to be in this spot right now and just to be able to talk to other people about what I find so fascinating and enthralling and life giving, but not from a place of like, I know everything or I'm right and you're wrong. Just well, this is what I've learned and, this is what I've seen. And, you can read the book in like 5 or 10 minutes if you like. It's just a
Mhm.
kid's book. But then obviously when people read it, they're like, oh my goodness, I didn't know there were more microbes in a teaspoon of soil than there are people on the planet. That's incredible. And you're like, I know, right? Like the soil. Who'd have thought?
Right. I used to like when I was doing the school garden coaching last year, one of my favorite things was to talk about soil microbes with the kids
Mm.
and then correlate it to the microbes in our own body. I'm like, have you ever thought of that? And you should have seen their faces. They're like, yeah.
I
But
love that too. Yeah.
people don't really connect the dots. Like, I mean, it's not just the
Mm.
soil. Like, we've got microbes in our own body that we need to take care of and make sure we're providing good food for. And yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're just a walking, breathing bunch of compost ourselves, right?
So we've been talking for about an hour. If anybody has any questions for us, go ahead and leave them in the chat and we can get to those. And thank you to everybody who has tuned in with us today for our odd opposite ends of the time schedule. Um,
Yeah, I'd love to see any questions. I just am really grateful to have met you, Sam, on Substack, and thank you for your support all the time, for your lovely comments, and
Oh, I love
Yeah.
it. Oh, I love the way you write, and I love the work that you're doing. Like, this outreach stuff is really exciting, I think. That's a really
Mm,
great direction to go in.
mm,
And the
mm.
educational aspect, like that, as a farmer, like, I know probably the same for you at farmers market, you're educating people just as much as you're selling, right? Like, that's really part of another part of our job is to educate people about how to grow how the food is grown, how you can cook it, yummy meals you can make, how to get your kids to eat squash, all of those little tricks that we've learned, we can share those with other people.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's just such a beautiful way for us to learn those beautiful personal stories about things that stick in people's minds that people then go on to remember for the rest of their life. You know, the stories that you've told those kids about the microbes in their gut, they're going to hear that somewhere else another day and say, "Oh, hang on a second, you know what? I remember
Mark
Farmer
said
Sam telling us
yeah,
that."
he said something about that, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and
So
I have to say I
okay.
admire everything that you've done too, Sam, but because, it's not hard. It's not easy, and it's not easy doing it on your own and what you've achieved and how far you've come and, you know, what you continue to do. It's incredibly inspiring, so, yeah, it's a
I
pleasure to
appreciate
have met
that,
you.
Kathy. I think, sometimes there's things that you're not gonna do without in your life, right? There's, like, some things that you're not willing to give up, and for me, farming and writing have always been those things,
Mm,
for better
yeah,
or
and it
worse.
yeah, and the more you write about it, you just don't know who you connect with or how that changes their life or, you know, one word, one story. It's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah. So, what is one piece of advice you'd offer a younger mom who's trying to raise her babies and grow food at the same time?
I would say to mind your own compost. I would say to, you know, I would really say to be mindful of yourself because without you, you are the soil. Everything grows from you. And if you're not in a good space, it's very hard for everybody else to be able to flourish. So it's definitely one of the things that I'm not saying I was good at because I was always the last person, you know, at the trough to get fed because
Yeah.
that's just the way we are as mums. But I think it's just really important to be kind to yourself and to remember that you need to be looked after just as much as everybody else. And I'm not saying, you know, go out and buy yourself a Burberry coat or take yourself on a 7-day cruise. It might just be, you know, like take yourself into town and buy the brand of tea that you love drinking, or it might be, you know, something pretty to tie onto your hat or, you know, just those little things and do them regularly for yourself and get off the farm and meet other people as much as
Mm.
you can just to kind of break the monotony and kind of break that circuit of, you know, on the treadmill as much as it's fabulous. I mean, I just think, yeah, you got to take care of yourself first. You've got to look after yourself. Yeah.
Yep.
Get some nice hand cream, wash your face.
Carve 5 minutes out of the day, sit with your tea.
Yeah, I mean, like, get a I mean, I can't even imagine what I used to look like when I was farming all the time, but I would honestly sometimes go to events and I'd be, you know, clean and I'd have done my hair or something, and people would walk straight past me and I'd say, "Hey, Sam." And they'd say, "Oh my God, I didn't even recognize you." It just used to make me think, what the hell do I look like every other day of the week?
Well, the pigs don't care, right?
The pigs could not care less. If you didn't shower for 2 weeks, they couldn't have
Yeah.
cared. Yeah. I just see someone there has said, "How do you go about creating, maintaining healthy soils in an urban environment with container gardens?" Yeah,
Mm.
you're the expert, Sam. What would you do?
Um, Creating and maintaining healthy soils and container gardens. Well, you're going to start with your compost. You can hopefully have a compost pile in a corner of your urban garden. If not, you could do Becca Lynn's method of direct burying your compost into your container gardens. Um, you can still put a cover crop on those container gardens. I guess it depends on how big your container is. You're not going to want to do, oats and peas on a little flower pot, but you could do something else. I mean, you can work that into any situation, any kind of cover crop on on a flower pot, I suppose. Yeah, I think it's going to start with your compost.
I would 100% agree. Like whatever you can do to compost, any sort of food scraps that you can save and turn into compost. Something I haven't done, but bokashi composting. Have you had much experience with that,
No,
Sam?
I haven't
It's
even
like
heard of that.
it's like a closed bin, bokashi, bokashi. I might put it in the chat because yeah, it's really great for small area composting, I think. And the
Nice.
other thing which is fascinating and doesn't smell and you can keep even in your kitchen is a little worm farm. And you
Yes.
can put all your kitchen scraps into and they'll
Yep.
turn it into fabulous worm castings. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yep. Or if you have a space in a closet, you can set up a Rubbermaid bin system. I used to have one of those once upon a time. So that would be a way. And then just continue, I would be continuously adding to those soils in those containers because
Mm.
it will leach out and it's not going to last forever. And so, and maybe you could have, like, if you have multiple containers, you could have a succession. So maybe this one over here is in a cover crop phase with the compost buried underneath. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely ways to work in that soil health aspect.
And another thing I would suggest is to companion plant or plant diverse crops. So if you're growing a tomato plant, you can plant little basil plants around it. If you look up companion planting, there's always something you can grow next to it, something tall, something that'll grow across the bottom of the plant. And yeah.
And compost tea, you can be using compost tea, and that's going to add microbes right into the soil of those container beds. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we should have a gardening show, Sam.
Yeah, we should.
Gardening hints. And who we'd invite into our garden.
Yes, and who wouldn't? Okay, Kylie, tell us where we can find your work and anything exciting that you're working on that you'd like to plug.
Ah, thank you. Well, I'm on Substack too, and you can see Soil Sister Kylie Woodham. Anyone who would like to follow me, that would be really great. Um, I am also, I'm going to hold up a copy of my book, Soil Sister Farming for Our Future. And you can actually buy that on Amazon in any country. And if you'd like a signed copy, you can just send me a message and I can sign it and post it from Australia. As I mentioned, I also am doing some work for a charity called Carbon 8, and we're putting together an annual uh, for regenerative ag stories from Australia. So, yeah, keep an eye out
I
for
love
that.
that.
I'll talk about it on Substack.
Good, excellent. Okay, well, and of course, I can be found at runamuckacres.substack.com, or you can find the farm's website, runamuckacres.com. I'm not so good about cross posting writing to the farm website, but and what do I have going on? I have a post coming out hopefully today about the historic wire bridge here in New Portland, Maine. It's the only one of its kind left in the entire country, and it's on our
Oh,
National Historic Register. Yeah, and it's just down the road from my farm. So
oh,
that will be
wow.
letter today, and then farm update on Saturday. I'm trying to decide, Kylie, if I want to do that in writing or if I should do a video for that.
Oh, I'd love to see a video, Sam. I'd love
Yeah,
to
farm
see a
update.
video.
Maybe
Yes,
I'll be brave. We'll see. It
yes,
was
I'd love to see what's happening.
I wish I could get internet out in the garden, but the barn blocks the signal. So
Maybe record and then come back to the office. Yeah,
yeah,
I'd love to see a video because you know how you get a different scope when somebody's walking with the video and
yeah,
this is over
come
here
on.
and this is over here and yeah,
Except make
yeah,
sure to
cool.
wash my hair.
Yeah, you can just have the camera facing out. You don't have to.
It's not good to me. All right, girl. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll see you on Substack.
Yes, it's been such a pleasure, and thank you so much for having me, Sam. My second live chat ever, so that's
You're
great.
doing
Thank
great.
you.
All right, we're both
Thank
doing great.
you.
Take
Yeah,
care.
thank you, Sam. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.